This is a mobile phone and this is a remote control. What do they have in common? What they have in common is that when we use them, we don't really care about how they work. We simply make the call and the call goes through and we are happy it's working. And when we use a remote control, we simply switch on the TV, we change the channel, everything works perfectly well. Now, how does it work actually internally? We don't care about this. How does this phone route the mobile network? How does it query my data? How does it check whether I have enough credit limit and stuff like that? We don't really care about this. But there's a problem there. Sometimes not caring about these basic things might actually be an issue. Now, you might not know that some remote control actually use infrared rays, while some remote control actually use gamma rays. What of today we are talking about 5G. How does all this affect our health? And we see that if we are totally ignorant of all these things, that will be a problem for us. Now, I'm not saying that we should learn everything 100%, but you need to know a bit of how this works. And that is why I'm here at this point. So I'm going to be explaining these technologies in a very, very clear and simple manner in this my channel. So if you are joining me for the first time, hit on the subscribe button below. And today we are going to be talking about a really technical word called microservices. Now, let's start from something we already know. If we go to a browser, let's start with something we know we always use. Let's say, for instance, I just go to facebook.com. There is something we all use. Now, what we see on Facebook is called a user interface. It's very friendly. We see beautiful pictures, well-formatted text. Everything is very clean for us. But now, if I right-click on this page and just say View Source, now things get a little bit messy, and now we don't understand it. Nobody wants to see all this. But this is called part of the API, because if you talk about user interface, we talk about programmer interface. I'm a programmer, so I might actually care about all of this. I might care about things. But for you, you don't actually need to care about this because you are just a user. But what I'm saying in effect is if you are just a user, it's not enough. You need to take go a little further to see how things actually work. Not this. Don't really worry about how this actually works. So basically, way back in time, when programs were developed, when applications were developed, we have one big application. This application is really complex, very big, like the initial days of Facebook. And the problem is that this application is called a monolith, meaning that one single application. So the challenge now is when a user goes to the user interface like this Facebook you see here, he enters something and that information he enters goes through some services, goes through something called a repository, goes through the data store, which is a database, and fetches the data and sends it all the way back through the same pipeline to the user interface and you see your data. For instance, when I click, let's say when I click on this link here, okay, on this link here, it takes me to this page. It goes to the database. It goes all the way in a fraction of a second or maybe a few seconds. It goes through several pipelines, maybe through different countries, and fetch this data. Now, if this is a monolith, one big application, the challenge is that when something goes wrong, let's say when the data fails, the database end fails, we see that everything goes bad. We cannot get our data. So think of it like a very long train having different wagons. When one wagon breaks down, the train stops completely. And that is called the scalability dilemma. So when something fails in this long link of connections of different components called a monolith, everything actually crashes. And as I mentioned, this is called the scalability deadlock. If we also look at it in another way, we talk about something called information hiding, where one aspect of the application, the user at the extreme end of the application, don't really know or care about what's happening inside the electronics or how it connects to the other parts of the system. So the solution to this problem, the solution to this problem of scalability dilemma is called microservices in the aspect of application development. So today we develop application using a principle or a technology or an architecture or an architectural style called microservices. What does it mean? Instead of having one long link of application, everything connected together in one long chain, we have things connected in a mesh. So instead of having this monolith, we actually separate an application into different small chunks, different little chunks that are called microservices. Look at it this way now. If the database section, the database chunk, or the chunk that contains your data fails, then nothing goes wrong because you simply redirect to another chunk which contains data as well, and everything continues working. Now, this is my introduction. I'm now going to get a bit into the technical aspects, and let's actually see how microservices work in real life. Now, I'm doing this by creating a website to explain all this very clearly. This website is right here in the description box. You can see it right here. It's momonia.com/microservices. It's a brand new website. I just started this website so that I can make this clear explanation both to programmers and to everyone. So if you want to support this website, if you want to support this program, actually buy me a coffee, subscribe to my channel. That motivates me to keep doing this because I do it actually for free. So today, let's now look at microservices design. How actually does it work? So if you're not a programmer at this point, you can actually stop. But if you want to learn a bit more, if you are smart, you can actually follow along. Maybe you can understand a little more. Now, we have the clear explanation on my website here, so you can actually read it. So basically, this is what we are talking about. We have a list of products. Let's say you have an e-commerce website, you want to buy some things, you want to see the list of products in this website. Now we have three different chunks or three different services or three different applications making up this big application. Now the first one is the Angular client. It's an application I built. Now I'm going to show you the demo of this. It's an application I built using AngularJS. I have a second one called the product web. It's also an application that's actually built using SpringBoot. And we have the last one, which is the product server, which is also I built it using SpringBoot and MongoDB. The server is built in MongoDB. So this is a complete architecture of how microservice works. And now there's something I also want to mention that's very technical. It's called the Feign Client. The Feign Client is necessary because when you have a server, you want to connect to the server, you also need a client. So technically, there are four different services here. The Angular client, the product web, the Feign client is like a proxy that links the web to the client. So for you to get to the database, you need to go through this Feign client proxy. And that's why this tutorial is about Feign client, because it's something many people actually don't know about. So let's get to work. Let me just show you. Again. Part of the architecture is this. You can see now we have four different components in this. We have the Feign client as a proxy between the web and the server. So we have the client and the server. Then you have the web. You have the user interface, which is the Angular client here. All right. The Angular client is a UI. So if you hear of AngularJS, you have this Vue.js, you have React Native. All these falls into the aspect of the client because you use it to build applications that where user can actually use, having a very good user interface connecting to the back-end services. So let's go to see the codes, the actual applications. So here we have the three applications opened up, all running on different, independently running on different ports, although in my local host spot on different ports. They actually can run on different servers completely located in different places. Let's start with the first one. The name of this application, if you go to the first one, the one here, and say there's a product server. And this product server, if I can just show you, let me just show you. Let's just go here. So we have Mongo repository. So how the Mongo repository is extended. So the repository that contains the data is in the product server. In case you've forgotten, let's just get back here. And let's get back to this simple architecture. Okay, so here we have the product server contains a controller. and the repository. Okay, and let's now go to the web. The web is the second item that contains through the Feign Client proxy onto the server. So in this case, we have the product web. That is the product web. Take some time to spend some time on my website to see if you can understand how all of this hooks up together. So the product web is at this URL product web and running at port 8081. The product server is running at port 8080. They are in different places. And the product, let's just get here. Let me just show you. The product server is exposing the endpoint / product, while the product web is exposing the endpoint / product web. All of them will give us the same information. Right? So now where is the client? This product web actually will connect to a client before it gets to the server, and this client is called the Feign Client. So if I can show you, if I go to the product service proxy, you can see that the product service proxy is actually what connects to the server. So the product service proxy is proxying into the server running at port 8080 to fetch the data, right? So the product web gets into this proxy and then it gets into the server. Now, how does the client come into play or the UI come into play? Now, let's now get to the AngularJS. This is a bit complete. It's a bit more challenging to understand, but it's easy to understand as well for programmers. If you go to this place, you can see the structure of the project. It contains a whole lot of things, but for now, let's focus on the client, HTTP client service. This makes a HTTP call to the product server, to the product web. So you can see the endpoint of the product web. So this UI AngularJS application connects to the product web, and the product web is running on 8081, and the web connects to the server running on port 8080. That's how the data is routed all the way up. Now the product client, the UI application built in Angular, as you can see, Angular application contains a HTML component, which is, I can just drag down. You can see a HTML page right here, which you understand to be HTML formatted page to display this item on the web page. So let's now go to the browser and browse on all these different ports to see what we have. So if I can go to the product server to see data coming directly from the server. So I can say HTTP localhost at port 8080. I think it exposes /products. So we have a list of products coming from the server at port 8080. Now I'm going to go to the product web, which is another application altogether, and let's see what comes there. So in the product web, I have HTTP localhost at port 8081 / product web So it gives us exactly the same information, but in this time, this product web is going through the proxy and getting into the server. So basically, this is what is happening. So the product web uses the proxy client and goes into the server. Now the proxy client is simply a service annotated with the @Feign Client. So take some time to get used to it. Now finally, we want to now go to the AngularJS client. The AngularJS client, which is a UI, exposes on a URL 4200, as you can see right here, and we have to visit /products maybe. So let me go to, not here. I'm going to the routing to see. So this is a routing model. So it exposes the path /products, as you can see right here, on the port 4200. So if I go to HTTP and I go to localhost 4200 and I go to product, now you see that there's going to be something different because now this is a UI exposed by the Angular application that is well formatted. And now this is how everything connects together. Now, I'd like to recommend you take some time to build this application yourself. These microservices, there are 3 of them. The procedure to do it is also in my website. I think the first lesson on this website, if you go back to the home page, you see that there are only 2 lessons. The first lesson, which is what I call Angular plus SpringBoot, explains how to build up the product web and the product server and the product's UI. So in case of the product web, you can also figure out how to do it. It's also very, very clear. Hopefully, this little explanation have helped you to understand how microservices work, either the basics or the technical aspect of it. I'll be explaining a little more. I'll be diving deeper into microservices in this website, this brand new website I created. And if you have any challenges, do let me know. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you've not subscribed, and also leave a question if you have any challenges, because this is what I do. My work here is to teach, and I do it for free. Support from people like you appreciate it very much. So you can get to Patreon or to buy me a coffee. All this is going to be fine. So I want to thank you for viewing. I want to encourage you to continue learning. Learning sometimes might be challenging, but don't give up. The more you put effort, the more the likelihood that you will actually learn effectively, and the more you are able to crack different nuts and break through different barriers and keep moving. I remain Clinton the Genius, and I'll see you in the next part.